Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, the podcast that takes, those really dense academic papers and makes them surprisingly interesting. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita.
We've noticed a lot of you are tuning in, which is amazing, but I haven't quite hit that subscribe button yet.
Yeah, and that little button, honestly, it's so small, but it makes such a huge difference in helping us reach more people with these important discussions.
Right. It's true. Like the algorithms, those mysterious forces that decide what we all see and hear, they pay a lot of attention to subscriber numbers.
Yeah, think of it like the subscribing. It's like casting a vote for quality content, So these insightful research discussions don't just get lost in the sea of all the information out there.
More subscribers equals more visibility. Right. And that means more resources for us to make even deeper dives for you.
Yeah.
Maybe bring in experts for interviews, even do some live Q&A sessions where you can jump in.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about building a community around research,
Yeah.
where curiosity thrives and knowledge is like shared and debated.
Today we're going to be looking at the world of angel investing. And specifically, we're going to be talking about this idea of social proof.
Yeah.
You see it all over the place. I mean, it's kind of like when you see a long line outside a new restaurant and you think, well, this has got to be a reason for that. It must be good.
Oh, right.
But, when it comes to investing, it gets even more interesting because there's so much at stake. Mm-hmm. And you've got these decisions that are being made under a lot of uncertainty. So does that wisdom of the crowd idea, does that actually hold up when you're talking about seasoned investors?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, even really experienced angel investors are not immune to the pull of social proof. And what we find in our research is that there are actually two types of social proof that are at play here.
Okay, so it's not just a simple case of follow the leader. Mm-hmm. Even Machiavelli said, a prudent man will always try to follow in the footsteps of great men. But are there different kinds of footsteps to follow?
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about external versus internal social proof. So external social proof is that classic following the crowd thing. It's like that restaurant example. You see a bunch of people doing it, you assume it must be good. So in angel investing, this is when new investors are kind of looking at what other new investors are doing and following suit. But then there's internal social proof. And that's where it gets really interesting. It's less about just the raw numbers and more about who's doing the investing. So it's like having a friend who's a regular at that restaurant. They know the chef. They've tried everything on the menu. They're giving you a much more informed recommendation. So in angel investing, this is about looking at the reinvestment decisions of those who already have money in the venture.
Okay, so you're not just looking at the initial buzz.
Yeah.
You're looking at who's still at the table when the second course is served. Makes sense. But here's the thing that I keep thinking about. Shouldn't experienced investors be savvy enough to see through that initial hype? I mean, shouldn't they be able to make their own judgments based on their own due diligence?
You would think so, right? But what's fascinating is that experience doesn't make investors less susceptible to social proof. It just changes how they use it. So what we found in our research, and this was based on a really large U.S. angel group, is that experience doesn't make people ignore social proof altogether. They just become much more selective about it.
Okay, so how do these experienced angels, how do they navigate this whole social proof thing? I mean, do they just ignore the crowd entirely?
Well, not exactly. What they do is they become less swayed by the sheer number of new investors because they know that external social proof, it can be misleading. I mean, it's often based on information that's provided by the entrepreneur, who obviously had a vested interest in painting a rosy picture. And experienced investors, they've seen enough to know that hype doesn't always equal success.
Right, they've been there. They've seen it all before.
Exactly. So what they do is they focus more on internal social proof. They're looking for that reinvestment signal. Are the people who already put money in, are they doubling down? That's a much stronger indicator of confidence because those investors, they've had access to more detailed information, more unfiltered information about how the venture is actually performing.
So they're kind of saying, show me the money, but not just the initial investment. Show me that follow-up funding from those who really know what's going on.
Exactly. It's about looking beyond the surface and understanding the real dynamics at play.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like checking the reservation book at that restaurant.
Yeah.
To see if the regulars are still booking their weekly table.
Exactly. They understand that internal social proof, it's a much more reliable signal.
Yeah.
Because it's based on, deeper knowledge and a firsthand experience.
Right. It's not just about the hype. It's about who's actually putting their money where their mouth is. So it sounds like these experienced angels are really doing their homework. They're not just blindly following the crowd. But did your research actually look at whether following this internal or external social proof, I mean, did it actually lead to better returns?
Yeah, we did. We actually analyzed the financial returns of the investments made by this angel group. And what we found was really interesting. Internal social proof was linked to significantly higher financial returns, whereas external social proof showed no significant relationship with returns at all.
Wow. So it really does pay to look for those insider insights. Those who tuned into that internal social proof, they were more likely to end up with those diamonds in the rough. It was like they had a secret map or something.
Right.
But, this whole idea of social proof, it makes me think about the psychology of investing. Do you think that maybe less experienced investors are just more susceptible to these kind of emotional influences?
Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the things that we wanted to explore in our research was this idea of fear of missing out, or FOMO.
Oh, FOMO. Everyone knows about FOMO.
Exactly. And we designed a vignette experiment to try to isolate this emotional element and see how it played out in angel investing decisions.
Okay, so you're talking about that feeling you get when you see everyone else jumping on something.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh man, am I going to miss out on the next big thing?
Exactly. And what we found is that inexperienced investors, they reported significantly higher levels of FOMO when they were evaluating potential investments, and this anxiety about missing out. It actually influenced how they perceived those ventures. So the higher their FOMO, the more appealing the opportunity seemed, regardless of the underlying fundamentals.
So FOMO can basically make a risky investment seem like a sure thing. That's a bit scary.
It can definitely cloud your judgment.
Yeah. So it sounds like your research suggests that experienced investors have learned to kind of manage that FOMO a bit better.
They have. They've seen the market cycles. They've experienced both wins and losses, and they've learned that getting swept up in the hype rarely leads to good outcomes.
So they've developed a kind of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
When it comes to investing, they can take a step back, look at the situation objectively, and make decisions based on reason, not just gut feeling.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, for those of us who are still building that experience, it's not always easy to access those insider insights.
Yeah.
Or to completely silence that FOMO. So do you have any tips for navigating this social proof landscape when you're just starting out?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, don't try to ignore social proof altogether. I mean, it's a natural human instinct, and it can actually be a valuable starting point. But instead of just blindly following it, use it as a trigger to dig deeper.
Okay, so don't ignore it, investigate it.
Exactly. When you see a lot of buzz around an opportunity, ask yourself, why are people so excited? What's driving this enthusiasm? Is it just external social proof? Or is there some real internal social proof at play?
So it's about becoming more aware of our own reactions, and then using those reactions to kind of fuel our due diligence. And I guess the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
If you see someone you respect, investing in a particular venture, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Have a conversation.
Ask about their thought process. You'd be surprised how much you can learn.
It's like you said before, those who have already invested, they're like the regulars at the restaurant.
Right.
They know the menu inside and out.
They might have some good recommendations.
And they might be willing to share.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, every conversation is a learning opportunity. You might not always get the answers you want, and the investment might not always pan out, but over time, you start to develop that same sense of discernment that experienced investors have.
Yeah.
It's like you're building up this muscle, this ability to filter out the noise and really zero in on the important stuff. That's what makes angel investing so exciting. It's not just about picking winners. It's about constantly learning and refining your approach.
It's interesting. It sounds like it's as much about understanding human behavior as it is about understanding, business fundamentals. You're learning to read between the lines, to decode those investment decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a journey.
It is. It's a continuous learning process. And what's so fascinating is that it doesn't end with any one investment. Each one you observe, each conversation you have, adds another piece to that mental model you're building of the angel investing landscape. You start to see the patterns, the pitfalls, the opportunities that others might miss.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by the fact that This whole idea of social proof. It's not just limited to angel investing. I mean, we see it everywhere, right?
Well, absolutely.
From choosing which products to buy to deciding, where to go on vacation.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental part of how we navigate the world.
Yeah, it's a basic human instinct. We're social creatures. We're constantly looking to others for cues on how to behave, what decisions to make.
So the more we understand about how it works, the better equipped we are to make, informed choices.
To do that align
With our own values and goals.
Exactly.
So as a final thought-provoking question for our listener today, let's imagine you're in that angel investor's shoes. You're evaluating a new opportunity, and you want to gather the right kind of social proof, the kind that leads to insightful decisions. How would you go about it? Would you focus on talking to other new investors? Or would you seek out the wisdom of those who have already invested? What questions would you ask? What signals would you look for to help you distinguish between the hype and the genuine confidence? We'll leave you to ponder those questions. It's been great having this deep dive with you today, and we hope you've gained some valuable insights into the power of social proof, not just in angel investing, but in all aspects of your life. So until next time, keep exploring. And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for more captivating deep dives like this one. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.